So Richie, give me your thoughts on All-Star Weekend, man. I'm really interested to see. There's a lot of talk immediately after it ended on Monday. Everyone's talking about it. So, what are your thoughts on the general outcome of All-Star Weekend in Utah?
I think before we get into the actual events, and I think that could be a very long conversation because some of the events were fun. Um, we got to give a lot of props to Ryan and Ashley Smith for putting on an incredible All Star weekend. I personally wasn't around Salt Lake during the weekend, but I saw videos of the pop up shops of getting people in Salt Lake. It was just an awesome weekend. I think there were lots of events around. I know some of my favorite podcasters put on live shows. It just feels like the vibes were a lot different than normal Salt Lake, and I think that's really good. I think Ryan and Ashley did everything that they were supposed to do, and it sounds like a lot of people had a good time. I mean, there's obviously this conversation about how they don't want All Star breaks to be in cold cities, but I don't know. I think it's fun. Salt Lake is definitely a good place to house celebrities, especially with Park City being so close. It's like we constantly have an inflow of celebrities coming in and out. But overall, I thought Ryan and Ashley Smith deserve a lot of flowers for what they did. Um, the events were interesting though, Thatcher. I feel like we should rank the events from like least interesting to most interesting.
That's actually not a bad idea because I feel like there's a clear favorite. I feel like that's the case. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we rank this. Before we get into that, I agree though. Um, I think this has implications for the Jazz and what you were saying with Ryan and Ashley kind of showcasing Salt Lake. Like the main thing of bringing Dwayne and stuff into the ownership was trying to prove like this is a good place to come, a good franchise to play for. And even before the All-Star break, a lot of players weren't looking forward to it. But I think it's really showcasing like, hey, like we can be a franchise that players who are in free agency, they want to play for and where they want to play. Like Utah has a lot of things to offer. So again, like they did a great job doing that. And a lot of these, I think some of these events proved how good All Star Weekend can be in Utah. So Richie, what is our clear favorite? Should we start from the top or should we start from the bottom?
Let's start from the top
Okay.
because I think that's the strong answer.
Okay, it's the dunk contest. Like
Yeah.
100%, that's what brought people in. That was the most viewed dunk contest of all time. And every former player was saying Mac McClung single-handedly saved the NBA dunk contest at All-Star Weekend. And I'll be honest, like going into this, and I think this is still something to talk about. But a lot of fans were like, okay, like there has to be dunkers in the actual league that can participate in this contest because Mac McClung was playing in the G League. And while he was viral for doing a lot of these dunks in high school and in college and stuff like that, we were still like, no, there's better dunkers in the NBA. For example, we saw a portion of that in the All Star game with John Morant. Like, Jaw's a big dunker in the league. But there's kind of a perspective that I think is not really taken into account from the early days when the big stars played in the dunk contest. You couldn't watch every game in the NBA. Like, not every game was available to see, and so this was kind of their time to showcase their talents once every year. And so I think that kind of puts into perspective like why some of these big time players participate in the dunk contest, so that they could showcase what they can do for the whole country to see because a lot of people couldn't see them the entire year. At the same time, I still think that players should be in the dunk contest that, drawn more attention. Like John Morant would be so fun to watch, players like that. Dude, but Mac McClung, man, like some of those tricks, I can tell you, like the arena was shaking, like when this happened. Like everything he pulled out, like the first dunk especially, I think I got chills. Like it was incredible. Richie, what were your thoughts about the dunk contest?
Um, yeah, props to Mac. It was incredible. The first dunk where you didn't see it the first time, but the second time when you see him hit the backboard, it just added this whole other element of flair. Um, I also think just like the ability to do it first try every time flawlessly is so underrated. That was an incredible performance by Mac. Um, Within the wider conversation of the dunk contest, I think it's really interesting to look at the history of it because, like you said, it has changed a lot. Back in the day, I was talking to my dad. He said when they had the ABA, the Salt Lake City Stars, they hosted the All Star event one weekend, and he was there. and Dr. J did the dunk contest, and we've had other guys. MJ was an obvious example, and I think the generation of hoopers after MJ were so inspired by him. That's why you had Vince Carter. That's why you had Kobe doing the dunk contests. The next guy after MJ was LeBron. LeBron never did the dunk contest, and I think we're seeing the effect of it right now because we're having these players that aren't willing to do it. I think that's why we haven't seen Ja in it. I think eventually Zion is going to get healthy, and he's a man of the people. I think he's going to do it. If he's healthy for an All-Star break, I would put money on him doing it. But yeah, Ja has said he'll never do it. He's the most exciting in-game dunker in the league right now, between him and Anthony Edwards, I think. Anthony Edwards has expressed openness to doing it, but Ja Morant has said never. So I think that's crazy. You got these guys, you got Jericho Sims, you got Trey Murphy, and they're okay players. Trey Murphy is, I think, a really good player, actually. But then you got Mac McClung, and it's maybe not what people want to see. I think the star power adds a completely different element to it. Like, who was the last All-Star to do it? I think it was Victor Oladipo in like 2017, the year Donovan did it. And it's kind of interesting to just see the slippery slope that the dunk contest has become because nobody's really impressing all that much. But yeah, honestly, big shout outs to Mac McClung. He deserves so much praise. He doubled his career earnings by winning the dunk contest. I don't know if you saw that, but he had made like $105,000 before, and he made $100,000 for winning the dunk contest. So definitely worth it for him.
That's insane. I didn't know that. I mean, besides the money though, like that just changed the trajectory of his NBA career because now he created a brand for himself. I feel like it's the same thing with Donovan. Like Donovan, his rookie year was showing flashes of what he could become, and then he won the dunk contest, and then I think the popularity started to come in, and then he started to make a brand for himself. So shout out to Mac, man. Like I'm not joking. I was in the press room after when he came in, like it was flooded. And that same day they had, yeah, that was Saturday. So that same day was like an Adam Silver's big State of the Union NBA press conference. Like Mac McClung's was just as packed, and there were like flashing cameras. I was like, holy cow, dude, this guy's like, and he said it himself, like it was all a blur, but like great job by him. And obviously, like it took the arena completely away. That stole the show, stole the night, stole the weekend.
Can I interject for 1 second?
Yeah.
I just got to give shout outs to, I think it was my favorite dunk just because it caught me off guard, but it was Trey Murphy's first dunk where Jose Alvarado came out from the crowd and stole it in typical Jose Alvarado fashion. I just feel like for the hoop heads that are always watching basketball, that have watched the Pelicans, that was kind of an iconic moment that not enough people appreciated because they aren't familiar with Jose Alvarado or that little thing that he does. But that low key that caught me off guard. I thought it was one of the most exciting moments personally. I was like in my living room standing up all by myself. Nobody else in my family knew what was going on. But yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I thought that one was a 50 as well. Like in terms of creativity and style, like again, because it's kind of hard to think of dunks for the average, the average person to think of new things to do. I like that one because, like you said, like the style was phenomenal. Everyone was laughing, thought it was great. Okay, so here's where, like again, like that's clearly the favorite event. Going down the list, I'm thinking about it. For me, I don't know. Maybe I'd say the 3-point contest, and I'd say only because it was awesome for Dame to get it in Utah, and it just seemed like he really loved being in Utah. And being a Jazz fan, I was kind of like, dude, man, like maybe Danny Ainge pulls some stuff. Maybe we get Dame. Who knows? But he was really just showing love to the city, and he put on a great performance. I think Tyrese Halliburton dropped like 31 in the first round and then completely tanked after that. But I mean, Dame's gonna Dame. It wasn't like like no one had like an insane performance, but I just like that Dame won it. I think that's kind of what puts it at number two. I don't know what's your event that you're gonna put at the 2 slot.
Yeah, I would actually have the 3-point contest there as well because it is attracting the most star power lately. I mean, if you look at who was in it, you had Julius Randle, who's an all-star, although I don't know how he managed to be the guy that snuck in there. You had Laurie Markkinen, an all-star, Damian Lillard, and then you just have like all these guys that people know. You had Tyler Hero, Kevin Herter, Buddy Hield. Like these are known shooters. So I just think it's different from the dunk contest because you know you're getting the best of the best. Whereas in the dunk contest, I mean, they're good dunkers, but it's not necessarily like the best in-game dunkers. But I feel like that's kind of the 3-point contest in a way has become the new dunk contest as far as like who is participating in it because you're getting the stars, you're getting the all stars, and it's not the same as the dunk contest. But yeah, I think it's really fun. I'm hoping we get a Dame Steph showdown. I feel like both of them just got to do one more, put it to bed. We'll never have the conversation again. Not that there's much conversation to be had, but that would be awesome for next year if we could get those two to go at it.
Yeah, and if it's those two, like in the final round, you have to add an even deeper like zone because that's their thing. They're not pulling up like from right behind the line, like they're pulling up from like 10 feet back. So maybe we'll petition for that to happen. Okay, so the next one down, this is where I feel like Rising Stars and Skills Challenge kind of had similar vibes, but I'm gonna go with the Rising Stars game next. Just because I felt like there's a little bit more effort than there is in the actual All-Star game. And I actually like the round robin type of thing where there's 3 teams, a little mini tournament. And this is again a place where people can kind of showcase their skills. And once again, Jose Alvarado was able to show people what he can do, what he's made of. So I'm gonna go with that one at the 3 slot. Which one? What are you going with?
I think I'd probably go skills challenge, but I can understand the argument for either. My thing with the skills challenge is I think it has devolved in a way. Like, do you remember when you had Darren Williams, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, LeBron, Kobe all doing the skills challenge? It's just changed a lot since then. So I think in a vacuum this year, I thought the Rising Stars game was a little bit better.
Yeah. Like you said, I think every one of these events used to be a little bit better back in the day. They've all kind of devolved. And obviously, like last place is the All-Star game. And this is where the conversation is kind of coming into place right now. Um, I was able to be at Adam Silver's press conference, and this was kind of a pretty big topic of discussion. Besides, they talked a lot about load management, obviously, because I think that's the biggest discussion going around the league this year. But in terms of All-Star weekend, it was really about the effort and kind of what the game looks like now. And I'm going to be honest, I got technically paid to watch this game. I was able to watch the first 3 quarters. I don't even know if it was worth it to get paid watching that game. I'm going to be straight up honest. Um, I was able to see tons of celebrities. Jake from State Farm sat like 3 rows ahead of me. I had some BYU basketball players sitting like 2 rows behind me. I was in the upper bowl too. And I just immediately from the get go, like, what's going to happen. But seeing it live, I was just so disinterested. Luckily, there were like a few plays, right, that get people going. But man, it's so hard to watch. Like, and people are paying thousands of dollars to watch this unfold before their eyes. And I was just completely astounded sitting there and realizing, wow, people are paying to watch this. And it's so sad because I feel like you're looking at highlights from the All-Star game in the 90s and like there's like hard defense. And again, it's like the Rising Stars, but like they're trying to showcase what they can do. And that's what people come to watch. Like that's what the All-Star game is. It's like the best against the best. And when you're not competing, and these are all natural competitors, like when you have the players coming out and saying there's something wrong with the All-Star game, like you as a commissioner, you as an organization have to do something to change it. And I feel like there's abs close to nobody who is interested in the current format because once again, there's no one trying, there's no effort. I'll say there's maybe one benefit to the game being like this, and it's not in terms of All-Star weekend. Players view this week or the weekend as like a vacation. And so players who aren't going to the All-Star weekend, they go on like a mini trip. And even those who are still, they treat it like a vacation. And that's how All-Star weekend presents itself. It's a break from the season before you gear into the final, 25, 30 games. So the benefit of that happening is that I think once All-Star weekend is done, players go to another level in this final third part of the season. Like this is where games become highly competitive for teams that are vying for a playoff spot. And so the games I think will be we've had some this has been a great regular season. I think, like always, this final third stretch going into the playoffs, this is where teams and players are going to heighten their abilities, try even harder. They want to get a good seed. And you saw that. A lot of players were openly saying that. Like, I don't care about, they didn't really want to answer questions about the All-Star weekend. They're basically just saying, I'm back to focusing on my team. Like, we're going to try and, get a win, try and, go to the NBA Finals. So that's the one benefit, I think, is that it provides a needed break. And I think as bad as it is, like this first 2/3 part of the season, still competitive, still great, but having this little break or this vacation, now I think it sets apart the final, 25 games for these games to be really competitive and really fun to watch. So I think that's the small benefit of treating All-Star Weekend as a vacation. But Richie, I know you have a lot of thoughts. So what are your thoughts on the current format of the All-Star game and what you noticed from this last Sunday?
The first thing that needs to change is no more layups in the All-Star game. If you do a layup in the All-Star game, you should get fined like $50,000. I don't care. I don't want to see Joel Embiid doing layups or Jason Tatum doing layups. It's so lame. Um, yeah, I mean, look, we're not expecting them. We're not even asking them to put in 100% effort in this game. I think that's a ridiculous expectation. However, we are expecting them to put in like 80% effort to put your body in front of them, not create like an open lane. It's like they're doing a tunnel every time somebody's about to drive where they all just, it's like Moses parting the sea. I don't know what's going on there, but they just allow guys to get to the rim so easy. And it makes for a really lame experience as a viewer. And that's the thing about All-Star Weekend. I recognize that it is a break for the players, but it's for the fans. All-Star Weekend, you do it all for the fans. Heck, the whole season is for the fans. Yet, because the fans love the players so much, it's given the players this pedestal of power where we're in the middle of the player empowerment era, and in the middle of the player empowerment era, I think we've seen a lot of digression in a lot of areas, especially those two things that Adam Silver talked about in his press conference with load management and with the All-Star game. Players just aren't taking it as seriously as they used to. And it's interesting because I think not everybody, not even all the players are wanting to do it. I think it's just been some of the guys that are at the front that have been leading the charge. Like you could hear Jaylen Brown. He talked about it after the game, how he just thinks it's so lame. He's like, that's the worst game ever played. Coach Mike Malone said the same thing, said it's just the worst game ever played. Like nobody wants to play that game. So I just feel like the players are going to have to take it upon themselves, maybe in the Players Association and have some sort of rules, or there's going to have to be some sort of incentivization from the NBA if there's going to be a competitive All-Star game. And like I said, we're not asking for these guys to dive for loose balls. We're not asking for them to play the hardest defense of their life. We just want a show. We want to see the best pickup game ever played with the best 24 players on earth. And I mean, we played pickup, man. We're not playing our hardest. We're not diving for loose balls. It's different than playing in an actual game, and you can feel it. You're not risking injury, but there's also a certain level of defense being played, and you're going to put your hand up in somebody's face, and you're not going to allow the easy stuff. So I really think that's going to be key for the NBA to maximize this weekend for the fans, because at the end of the day, I stand with that statement. This weekend, as much as the players may view it as a break, it is for the fans. And I think players have to be able to recognize that. And I think the NBA is going to have to make some changes for that to be kind of a bigger emphasis when you're talking about this weekend.
That's a phenomenal statement right there. I might consider that as NBA scripture. But even the players say like they're doing it for the viewers and they're trying to make it a fun experience. Like that's the whole point of the weekend. And a lot of people were talking about the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum one-on-one stretch that we had there in the second half. Like they're maybe giving 60%, and that's what got people hyped. Like they're just putting a little bit of effort into their defense. And even on offense, they're not really doing anything, but like just seeing effort Again, like that's all we're asking for because that's what you're paying for is to see the best players on the court. Like you can notice in some NBA games though, like they're obviously not going to give 100% in every single game. Like again, that's if every player gave 100% in all 82 games, like guys would be dead. That there would be a lot of injuries, and that's a whole other discussion to talk about. The how many games there are in a season, but again, like you said, like just giving a partial effort, because right now it's like 10% where it's kind of doing like Jalen Brown said, it's like a layup line. Like they're all just kind of standing back and players just going in and doing wide open layups. Like, why would I pay $900 to see that? I can do that myself at my local church gym. So maybe I should be an all-star. Maybe I'll get a jersey. But I just think the weekend has so much potential. And before we talked about the All-Star game, we talked about all those events on Friday and Saturday. Like they have potential and people are tuning in because there is that possibility that these events can be great. Like I would not have predicted that this dunk contest would have been the most viewed ever in NBA history looking at the lineup, but it was able to live up to it because once again, Mac McClung gave effort, and the fact that he had like 5 dunks in the bank, and he really wanted to do it, and he said, "I'm coming back. Like I want to do this again." Like that's what we're looking for because once again, like player empowerment, like you said, that's the era of this age of NBA basketball. It's taken some things down in a lot of ways. It's taken some things up in some ways, but at the same point, you have to realize like the NBA is an entertainment business. Sports is an entertainment business. Like it's so that we as fans, as viewers, can watch something and that we're drawn to it. And it's not entertaining to watch layups, and it's not entertaining to watch people give half effort in the skills challenge. And no disrespect to like people with no big name brands participating in these challenges because it can change that, but like these stars have an ability to boost the NBA's ratings, to boost their own ratings in a way that hasn't been done in the last few decades. And I think, I just think the NBA would benefit as a whole if stars were to be able to recognize once again, you're in the entertainment industry, so make it entertaining rather than thinking this is like a job, and so this is a break for my job before gearing up for the final part of the season. Going back to kind of the whole thing about the All Star break, though, again, like I think Utah did a great job. Um, the environment around Salt Lake City, dude, was crazy. It was packed. The state put tracks on for free, and I think Saturday it was like standing room only from the morning until the very end of the night. Like everyone was going downtown, and it was sad to see once again Chuck and Shaq kind of bashing the city like right before tip off. But the things that they're labeling as like fun things to do in the city, like that's just not what people do in Utah. Like if you're labeling like the fun things to do is like drinking, gambling, having fun, like drinking, gambling, drugs, like that's not what downtown Salt. I feel like that's not what a lot of cities are going to do. Like it's not like Milwaukee or a lot of these other small cities are like really anything better, like Oklahoma City. Um, and so I think it's really hard for us to try and jump over that. I don't, I don't know why I'm blanking on the word, but how people are already assuming kind of like what Salt Lake is, and they're not ready to kind of or willing to see what Salt Lake can be or the things that it has to offer. And like the downtown vibe was amazing for those who live here. Like it was phenomenal. You had the NBA crossover event. City Creek was bumping. It was alive. There were billboards everywhere. Every hotel was booked. Adam Silver said this was the most economically impactful NBA All-Star weekend in history for any city involved. Like there was just so much going on, and it was so great to see everyone in Utah really just want to be a part of this event. So I hope players kind of see maybe like this can be a place that they want to play. Um, but Richard, did you have any thoughts about like what Shaq and Chuck said before tip off in terms of Salt Lake again, once again, not being a fun city, but rather a boring city?
Man, I just think the main antithesis to their argument is just look at Jordan Clarkson on Saturday night. what are the chances that he was high and having a great time? He
He
looked
was,
like he was pretty high during the skill contest.
and I can attest he was. I'm pretty sure he was high in the press conference too. Um, like Walker Kessler told him multiple times, like he did the like to cut it out what Jordan was saying. Because I think one of the questions asked was like, how did you guys like prepare for this? And Jordan Clarkson was like, yeah, well, before I hit my, uh, or they were talking about Laurie Markkinen participating in the 3-point contest. He's like, yeah, he was still like hitting the racks, man, in the gym last night while I was going off bouncing to like 5 or 6 different parties. And he was like about to go on. And Walker Kessler's like, dude, like, you got to cut it off, man. Like, he's got like the half open eyes, like, yeah, dude, like it was legit. But like, yeah, it's like that's your point. Like Jordan Clarkson is the type of guy like who wants to go to the clubs, he wants to go to the bars. Like that's his personality, and he loves Utah. And again, I think there's maybe 3 or 4 cities that are in the league that have the type of environment where you can go out and go gambling, drinking, and do drugs like while you're not playing games. Like there's only a few cities. Everywhere else, I don't know what the city life is like. Again, it boggles me. I'm not trying to like throw down on Oklahoma City, but I've been to Oklahoma City, dude. Like it's like half as big as Salt Lake. It's just fields surrounding the place. It's like in the middle of nowhere, and there's still stuff to do there, but no one bashes Oklahoma City. Everyone bashes Utah. And Utah has one of the highest growing populations in the country on a consistent basis. Like you have a ton of tech companies coming in here now. A lot of the California migrants are moving to Utah, and the real estate market is still increasing and getting higher. Like you said, you have Park City. I had one of my director who works for the NBA. He lives in Brooklyn. Basically, asked the question like, "What is there to do?" Because I can't really let loose out here. And I was like, well, this isn't really the place to let loose in the way that you're thinking. But I was like, where is another place in the country where you can get off a plane and within the hour be up skiing in some of the best snow on earth? Or within the same hour, go on an incredible hike up these giant mountains that are right next to the city. You can literally go from up in the canyons to downtown vibes, again, within the hour, which I think is very rare across the entire country. Like, the state is so diverse, but I think players and the organization as a whole, like I saw it with the media, they just don't understand it and no one likes it. So I hope it changed some players' perspectives or thoughts about the city. But dude, like that was kind of frustrating for me because like my own like employers for the weekend were like, yeah, Salt Lake is just I'm just really bored, man. He's like, it hasn't really changed since we were here in like 1993. I'm like, dude, I've only been in Utah for like 7 or 8 years, and I can already see the changes that they've made downtown. I I just don't know what else to say anymore. Like when they're asking like, "What do I do to let loose?" Like I just don't even know how to respond. So, Richie, do you have like any final thoughts on what you would do to I don't know how to say this, but how to show off Utah to the rest of the league?
That's the thing. I don't know, man. I think there are a lot of people I pay attention to that really had a good time this weekend. I was listening to Ryan Russillo's podcast. He's probably my favorite podcaster. And he was telling everybody, he did a live show with Laurie Markkinen, and he was saying how much he loved Utah. He's been there like 8 or 9 times. And he's like, I love Park City. I love Salt Lake. It's just the vibes are really good. The people are nice. What's to hate about Utah? If you hate Utah and you just don't know what to do, then I don't know. I kind of think there's something wrong with you. Like there's so much to do here. All you have to do is like he was talking about how people just have this weird stigma where they're like, "Oh, Utah," or I'm kind of nervous to go to Utah. Why would you be nervous to come to Utah? Like I recognize that it's kind of a small city. Like we're probably half the size of Denver, but we're also a lot closer to other things than like Denver, for example. We're closer to the ski resorts, like you said. We're closer to just everything. Everything's a lot closer together, and I really feel like people just have this weird perception about the city because I just don't think they're getting the right information. Um, I don't know. I feel like as it continues to grow, as the city grows, things are going to kind of change within that conversation. But yeah, I mean, hey, we live in Utah. We know Utah better than anybody else. We love it. I think that's all that really matters. It's going to start growing on people. Um, yeah, I mean, heck, it's not even as cold as it is in Boston, for example. Like, yeah, there's snow on the ground, but Boston gets it was like -20 last week. So yeah, I'm done with the Utah discourse. I think it's stupid.
Yeah, and I think if Shaq's saying that he stayed in his room all weekend, I don't know if that's a valid opinion to go off of because obviously he didn't try to make an effort to see what Utah was like. I know most of our listeners are from Utah, so you guys already know how it is. But yeah, kind of frustrating. But like you said, a lot of players and a lot of people, a lot of the media came out of that and said, "Wow, Utah did a really great job," and I'm open to coming back. And I think it's a great spot to have an All-Star weekend to bring celebrities in, like you said.